Welcome to episode number 225 of AAA Weekly Education Series. Today we are presenting something which is called iPIE. iPIE. This is Integrated Platform for Insolvency Ecosystem. This is not a discussion paper. This is a document released by Ministry of Corporate Affairs for seeking suggestions. And it is our duty to go through this document, give suggestion, because this is all going to be the biggest digital revolution for the insolvency ecosystem since the time it has started in India. So this is the importance of iPIE. In short, it will be very popular as iPIE, which is IPIE, Integrated System for Insolvency Ecosystem. So this actually would be a great portal which actually would be launched by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, where the most of the stakeholders, most of the regulators and the NCLT, NCLAT would be clubbed together on one portal. Now, this basically, it actually will give a lot of comfort to all service providers and also the litigants and also the NCLT and NCLAT. So the consultation window is open only up to 3rd August. This document was released on 20th July 2026 and the consultation window is open up to 3rd August. Why we are conducting this episode today is to provide you all this information ready-made after our research, what it covers and what it misses. The objective is that you can add on to your own observations and give suggestions to MCA on the consultation window. So Ankit, what do you say what is the importance of this iPIE?
So iPIE, I believe, is something that IBBA has been talking about since a long time. I think it's been something on which various consultants have been working since the past 1 year or so. And I believe everyone does think that it will smoothen things up, it will make things more efficient, also make everyone more accountable. Here the feedback that one can give is not online, it is actually an email ID on which the feedback can be given, and there is a table that has been provided that all the feedback should be provided in that template. So yes, that is part of the document itself, and those instructions will be helpful. So one needs to of course say that that this is a representation in which capacity, and I'm sure that the government is also using some kind of software to integrate the submissions that come to them as long as they are part of that table.
Let me say the vision of iPIE. I will read to create a robust, scalable, flexible, and centralized integrated platform to meet the current and future requirement of the IBC ecosystem. Future ready, tech driven, with data driven decision making, integration with IBC pillars, enhanced transparency and digital security. So the most important part would be one, the data driven decision making and also taking care of the security. That's very important. So presently, let us understand what we all do, what all service providers, everyone whosoever is interested in doing some work in IBC, what they are doing. Presently, we are actually reaching out to NCLT portal, IBBI portal, MCA 21, NESL means information utility, emails, Excel sheets. Then we also have created various WhatsApp groups for allocating tasks or reminding our own team members. Google Drive for keeping the documents, for storing the documents. Auction websites are separately required. Voting platforms are separately required. Virtual data rooms that we hire, various physical files. All this is what we are doing presently. Now what iPIE would do. iPIE is having various modules. It actually will carry for us in different modules, work management system, case management system, document management system, communication system, like all the emails, all the communications would be handled by this platform, iPIE. Litigation management system, compliance system, auction platform, voting platform, analytical platform, even the document registry, because the documents would be kept with for like as required for 8 years. So this is what this iPIE would do, and what all stakeholders would be covered. The NCLAT and NCLT would be roped in, it will be integrated. MCA would be integrated, IBBI would be integrated, information utility would be integrated, insolvency professionals would be integrated, and then insolvency professional agencies and registered valuers and registered valuer organizations. So they are not writing IPE because now they've started understanding IPE as one of the service providers, like they're covering insolvency professionals on one side in case the IPE is appointed as RP, so they actually are considered as insolvency professionals, so they are covered in this stakeholder as insolvency professional. When we talk about these support services which is given by IPE to another insolvency professional, that would be covered in other service providers like valuer, like auditors, like various other service providers. That's what we so far feel, because the IPE as such is not covered in this document. Only at one page it is covered, which actually talks about IPE, and that is also just for the sake of like the stakeholders category, because there will be a category when we log into the portal, there will be a category of insolvency professional entity also. Otherwise, there is nothing which is mentioned in the entire discussion paper, anything about IPE, but yes, there will be a separate category in the emails from the following options that actually is appearing, that there will be a separate category when we log in as IPE. That's what we understand. When the portal will come, then we will see further. Then presently, this is addressing to what exactly is being done, which is a fragmented IT system. We all are using a different kind of IT systems, like as we understand, NCLAT, NCLT, IBBI, IPA, information utility, they are all using some systems, but all those systems are different and they are fragmented. If all this can be collaborated, all this can be clubbed into one system, I think that is going to be useful, and that is something which is remarkable. Coming back to the what we understand, in case it is implemented, we actually will go to the like each module, because see, this has 13 modules, and in each modules there are different tasks and different stakeholders actually would be able to use it. But as far as this integrated technology which is being developed and which is actually at the urge of at the verge of introduction, final introduction, it actually will enhance a lot of efficiency. This will minimize delays. This will actually minimize errors. There will be hardly any missing time, missing any person. So it will actually finally it will maximize the value for the stakeholders. And then when we actually have this seamless interaction between IP, IPA, NCLT, NCLAT, so these creditors, finance providers, even the claims will be submitted, even the authorized representative, even the home buyers, everyone would be integrated into a standardized process. The process would be standardized, forms would be standardized, email communications would be standardized, everything actually would be recorded, and it will be completely based on a security system. It will be completely based on a login, a password. Even the service provider would be able to create a user for his team. However, the whatever work is being done by the user, the responsibility would be on the primary service provider. The user cannot be responsible. If I give a ID, special user ID to one of my team member, so then the responsibility under section 208 would lie on me as primary service provider, because my team is actually doing something which is based on my guidance or my directions. So that is also very clear. We can have e-meetings, we can have e-voting, we can have virtual data room, we can have auctions, we can have challenge mechanism, we can have bulk communication, digital marketing, everything that we can actually go through from the same portal. So that is what is the comfort. Everyone will have to learn this. Everyone will have to keep it opened every time. That is what actually is the. See, Ankit, what else that you have read about this before we go to the each and every module? What else that you feel that actually it is integrating into one?
I
As I
believe
said, the VDR is we've said.
Yeah, so VDR is one. Then, of course, the entire NCLT framework, I think that's a beautiful thought process that when an application is filed in NCLT, the system will automatically generate a ID for the corporate debtor, that application. And that tracking will also happen, that information will also go to IBBI that, okay, this case has been filed in NCLT and it is pending in NCLT. Then the NCLT will be able to see how the MCA data, what is the MCA data reflecting on iPIE portal. So these kind of integrations, I think, go a long way in giving all the relevant information to the stakeholders. Now, in the morning today, I was having a meeting with an RVO, and we were talking about the suggestions with respect to valuation. So here again, the valuation framework is also integrated in this iPIE. So it actually takes care of everything around the insolvency process of a company or a liquidation process or a bankruptcy or individual insolvency. And I believe that all these stakeholders are part of the process. I understand that we can also get this clarification from IBBI and MCA, but I understand that IPEs are not added separately because IPEs which are practicing as an IP will of course log in as IPs themselves, and then when they act as a support team, then the IP will of course ask the IPE to act as a support team. So therefore, perhaps they did not feel the need for an IPE to be registered separately. But yes, certain compliances the IPE has to do separately, because if IPE is regulated under the code, IPE also files the annual revenue, the form EA, and all the other compliances. So I understand that if so much is being done, then why not generate another system for an IPE? Presently, all the IPE compliances, or most of the IPE compliances, are done through the portal of the partner. That is how current system works. That an authorized signatory is decided, and that authorized signatory is doing the compliance on IBBI portal. So here again, perhaps that is the thought process, that the authorized signatory will do the compliance as an IP.
Yes.
Possible.
Yeah, that's possible. So the entire life cycle of CIRP, liquidation, the personal insolvency, bankruptcy, everything is covered through this portal. Right from the default and triggering CIRP, then the admission, assessment and admission of the case, then is the appointment of RP, and then like after the appointment of RP, it is very important that even the claim management. The claim management is covered through this portal, the stakeholders communication, meetings and votings are covered, even the report submission to authorities, including the NCLT, including the IBBI, automatic report submission actually will be generated. So this is all the entire life cycle of CIRP or liquidation can be routed through this portal. Either it will be mandatory, rather, not only can be, it will be mandatory to route through this, because this will actually provide real-time monitoring for the regulators, real-time monitoring for the service providers.
So much communication today.
Yes, so much of
That
communication.
will be avoided. Today, you have emails, you have letters going here and there. Today, in case tomorrow when this portal is set up, in case you have done something today on the portal, you've done it. Otherwise, you've not done it.
Yeah.
So the timeline, the accountability on doing everything in time.
This also provides that there will be a prompt decision making. This also says that it will actually instant notice issuing. Instant. There will be some, if there is any notice to be issued, that also will be instant, because the communication is also through the portal, through iPIE. Why should I say portal? It's iPIE. Home buyer. How good it would be for the home buyer to file their claim, to understand whether the claim accepted, to understand what the process is going on, and also whenever some transaction is made on iPIE, first of all, it as the login captures the user ID, It also captures the timestamp. It also captures the IP address. Now, the IP address, capturing IP address for, say, the participants into the e-auction, that actually would be a very big understanding of the process. That will be very big security. That will be traceability. Like there are instances that the three persons sitting on one table, they are participating into the e-auction, but that actually would be traceable now. So that is something that timestamp and the IP address would be also, in fact, immediately recorded for any transaction, may it be e-auction, may it be e-voting, everything, so that everyone would understand that 50 home buyers are sitting in one table and they're just putting voting, or one particular IP address is voting for 10 home buyers. That actually will be traceable now. So that is where we actually find a lot of kind of benefits. And then finally, the synergy between all the stakeholders, NCLT, IBBI, and IPA, and everything, that actually would be very, very important. And the common data platform for various kind of analytics, various kind of research, impact of policy, impact of any regulation change, that actually would come to the information of regulators quickly. The decision making would be quick. NCLT will also understand how many applications are pending, how many resolution plans are pending on one particular click. So that is where this platform will actually work. So it actually will integrate all the IBC pillars. It will empower insolvency professionals and other service providers, and also IBBI. It will empower IBBI with the latest information. It will analyze the data so that the decision making can be faster, and this will also secure the data, transaction, and the process. No, and so like when we say how, Ankit, you feel that the iPIE is presently, like since we have seen that it is kind of so much of a stress to insolvency professionals that we have to provide information to NCLT, IBPI, IPA, and we have to communicate with the RA. We have to communicate with the promoters. So there will be like kind of a form AC type things that also will be routed through this iPIE. What information has been received, what information has not been received, what information has actually been asked from the management. I think that actually would be a very good.
I couldn't see suspended management as a stakeholder.
It is a stakeholder. Let me see suspended
management is not listed as a stakeholder.
Because see, if the suspended management is giving information, or any of the official of corporate data is giving information, that can also be through this portal, this form AC, which has been introduced by this CIRP regulations in the first week of June 2026. That can be routed through this iPIE, because the information sought, information received, and the balance information, and that actually can be used for section 19 subsection 2 applications, and that actually would be impactful.
So yes, information, the suspended directors can be allowed to upload information, but of course form AC is also about custody of tangible assets. You can't do that on an online system. It can only be a submission there. But yes, I understand that yes, for the suspended management to share information on iPIE can be a suggestion if that is permitted, or that is a thought process which is aligned with MCA.
But there are certain things, Ankit, which are not integrated, which the service providers like insolvency professionals, they do access. Like they do access the income tax records of the corporate debtor or the personal guarantors. They do access the EPFO records for understanding the employees and also their gratuity calculations. They also access to the GST portal to understand what kind of compliances are done and whether the compliances are done or not, even in the tax dues, TDS dues, and even for various other portals like import-export portals. But those are not integrated because something which is not possible, so it has not happened. So the service providers, the insolvency professional, will have to access those portals separately.
Yeah, I believe there is no option there. The only point is that in case the iPIE itself has some kind of formats which requires an IP to report on the information that is captured from these external portals, then that of course, will bring some uniformity in the current process. Currently, maybe some insolvency professionals are able to access, some are not able to access. So once the portal says that, okay, upload the previous 12 months GST returns so that the resolution applicant or the prospective resolution applicant can take a conscious call on whether he wants to go for this resolution plan or not, then in that case, yes, it will be a uniform, it will bring uniformity to the system.
Now I think we should reach out to all the 13 modules. So Ankit, can you start with the module 1, and then we will discuss the kind of suggestions that we think that it can cover module by module. And I would just see if my viewers, if the our audience, they can also give suggestions after adding their own, and so that finally when this iPIE will come out to us, it would be close to perfect. That is what is the objective of this episode.
So the first one is user registration and management. So it says this module will provide centralized system for user registration, authentication, authorization, seamless onboarding, and role-based access control for stakeholders. Here, what we also understood is that how
No, I believe one thing is this is, there is one sector which is the internal task assignment. If I am assigning a task to one of my team member, that actually should be like I assign a task and then somebody can work. If I simply give a one user ID to one of my employee, that actually might be slightly difficult because I should give a task, and that task that he is able to do, and since he is logging in and he actually is having the timestamp and also the IP address, so that is, of course, the security is okay, but I think the internal task management or assignment, that needs to be checked, because see, most of the service providers will have multiple assignment internally, because see, like it is required, the I think we actually will say that the makers of this iPIE, they should understand the requirement of internal task assignments.
So the maker, checker, authorizer. There are three ideal ideas. So what we can say is that the user registration here, in case we talk about delegation, and the delegation can always require the IP to finally authenticate, and final submission can be done by the RP. Whereas the upload, making the document or drafting the document, drafting the form online can be done by somebody who he has assigned. So this will be a better control and practically oriented thought process. Otherwise, we do envisage that many IPs might have to risk giving their own authentication or user ID password to their teams also, which will again bring down the efficacy and the authenticity of the system. So the chances of mistake will be high there.
See, we also need to see, we rather would like to give a suggestion. We will check whether there is any possibility of an outgoing RP to check the work, whatever he has done in the past, or a work which is done by an outgoing liquidator, whether he would have the access to that part, whatever he has done, or he would not have the access. That is something which we actually would try to give a suggestion.
Then the next process is process commencement. So this module talks about how the iPIE ID is generated, and it enables linking with NCLT, creating case timeline, fetching the default dead default information. It doesn't say dead default information from IU, but maybe it means that
From the application, probably.
yeah, dead default information, fetching the dead default information, relevant data from IBBI portal, facilitating the public announcement for inviting claims, and then it talks about consent for appointment of the proposed IP, case e-filing on NCLT portal, case initiation in iPIE, consent for acceptance, public announcement, intimation to CD, board, statutory authorities, workmen, employees, withdrawal, termination, internal task assignment by IP, and then base resolution plan and the voting thereof. So this entire process commencement module, we could only understand that there is no express mention of information getting tabulated from IU, and of course the information which is available in on MCA database to be automatically available to NCLT or the stakeholders at the case admission stage. Because if a bench would know that a company or a corporate debtor against which application has been filed has charges from XYZ companies, has IU based defaults of these many entities, has maybe CIBIL related information which can be built in here as a plugin. So it will actually change the whole scenario of how NCLT and how quickly they can take a decision whether this company should be admitted into insolvency or not.
I think this civil kind, like the financial information provider, the as RBI approved 5 financial service providers like CIBIL. I think in case this portal can have access to those financial service providers, that actually will also give some comfort for accessing the information about the individual or the corporate debtors. Secondly, we are not sure whether the applicant under Section 7 or Section 9 or 10 would actually file this application through this portal or not. So, because see, we only could read one thing, that this one case ID, one iPIE ID would be created for each case. And since it is also mentioned that it will capture the default and debt, so that actually means what we understand is that even the filing of the application under Section 7(9) also would route through this iPIE.
It says unique iPIE ID generation upon NCLT e-filing and data linkage between iPIE and NCLT. So it appears that the filing will be done on NCLT and the iPIE system will pick it from NCLT.
So
because this seems to be a larger system in which other platforms will get integrated.
So look at the benefit. You see, like if we have given a consent, that will be registered on this iPIE. So then any application that is submitted, that is also. So how much information would be available where the decisions can be taken automatically? Even it will be an information available at which bench has how many applications pending under Section 7. It will be available publicly, probably. So that actually will be kind of mind-blowing information. So this is in case it happens and it gets implemented, which we all should make an effort that it should get. So that actually would be a complete changeover of this IBC ecosystem.
I think the tracking with respect to timelines will be here. So yeah, that will actually make a lot of sense today. Right now, today, I don't think IBBI gets information on the admission and the timeline till admission. So that I think is going to be the biggest change here.
Yeah.
But IBBI will get live information that each case, when was it filed and when was the decision to take it, make it go through insolvency and not go through. So that information will actually.
No, IBBI, MCA, NCLT, NCLAT would come to know how many resolution plans were approved and still pending before the NCLT. That also will come. That will come just on a click of a button.
Yeah.
Because see, everything would be completely available.
And it will be bench wise again.
It will be bench wise again.
If some bench is having a faster disposal, that will be visible in this data.
Yes.
Coming to the next part, that is claim management. So this module, of course, this says shall efficiently organize and process claims from creditors, offering a streamlined interface for submission, verification, and admission. So it talks about configuration of claims management tool, submission of claims, claim processing and verification, withdrawal and modification of claims, accept reject claims by the RP, reconsideration of rejected or partially accepted claims, communication to the IP claimant, for the IP to kind of communicate and seek clarification on documents, claim form submission by IP, allowing the IP to initiate filing. So it is envisaged that this iPIE will become the tool or the interface through which all claim related correspondence will happen. It also provides for the IP to be able to upload those claims which have not come through the iPIE portal. So of course, keeping in mind that some claimants might not be tech savvy to make their own iPIE portal, there might be technical difficulties, they can submit a claim otherwise and the RP will be able to upload that and kind of make it part of the entire system. So what we could understand here is that one, the claims are very dynamic. Claim classification can be based on court orders. we see multiple rounds of claims being submitted to NCLT whenever we constitute a COC or kind of admit the claims. We also see sometimes that certain claimants, they realize some money as a guarantor, as in some other capacity, and their claim actually reduces. So even that is something that I believe can be made part of this ecosystem, that the claim will have to actually have to be very dynamic. So those facilities should also be provided, how the claim can reduce after acceptance, how the claim can move to a different category because of some litigation or some additional documentation coming in. So I believe all that is important to be part of the system.
See, the only thing that we couldn't read anything like security interest, we believe that the information about security interest would also be there. And now think of, like, there are various timelines that the service providers are supposed to comply with. Now, when the claim was received, when it was verified, when the information was sought, when the information was provided, everything is transparent. There is nothing which can be backdated. So if this portal works, I think even the penalties, there are various penalties which actually are payable to IPA or IBBI for late submission of various CIRP or liquidation forms. Those also would be automatic from this, or maybe after this, all those CIRP or liquidation forms will be abolished, because those would not be required, because the purpose of those forms is only to collect information. So then, therefore, probably there will be no CIRP form, there will not be any liquidation form. That also would be very clear. So those will be kind of merged into this. So that's very good, in fact. But then there should be some kind of tab where we are also able to accept the belated claims. Because see, we should actually be able to understand how many are the belated claims. Because this is one information which is required to be submitted if we provide it in the information memorandum.
Rather, I would like to add that when we actually look at other documents like the balance sheet, like the financial statement, sometimes we find that there is a creditor who the company's records and the accounts show as a creditor,
Yeah.
and we kind of seek that person to kind of submit their claims and they don't. So I believe that is also something that can be made part of the module.
See, that should have, because see,
Yeah.
it is not there in the narration, so we are just trying to say that it should have. But
So
then
sending correspondence to those creditors who have not filed their claims. I think we can add
see,
that
in
here.
case the service provider gives the information to iPIE that I have found these creditors in the books of account, send communication to them.
Yeah.
That also can happen from this.
Yes.
The only thing is that the email and the communication, that has to go.
Yeah.
So that also something which actually will ease and will create a kind of record that this work was done, and also it will not be missed. So the basic information of belated claims, rejected claims, should be provided in information memorandum. So rejected claims are mentioned here in the document, but the belated claims are not mentioned. So that, I think, in case it can be covered, so that the same information is required for IM. Yes, moving on to fourth module. Ankit.
So the fourth model is stakeholder management. So it says that this model will store and manage all stakeholder information and effectively communicate with the stakeholders involved or impacted by the process. Talks about appointment of AR in creditor class, constitution of committee of creditors, how the system calculates the voting percentage on its own, appointment replacement of IRP, RP, liquidator, appointment of RVs, list of stakeholders, communication, and then meeting with stakeholders. So it kind of it is where the all the stakeholders become part of the communication, and the communication also happens through the portal. So this is how this part is involved. The registered value appointment process, as per this document, starts from IP to evaluate quotations. So yes, it can be if registered values are also part of the ecosystem, the entire request for quotation and the quotations themselves, and the then of course it starts with evaluation of the quotations. So, but these two parts can also be made part of the process to make the registered value appointment process very
Yes,
transparent.
that's very important. Like if the request for RFO is prepared,
RFQ is prepared.
RFQ is prepared, and then it is communicated to most of the RVOs or RVE or RVs.
IP can shortlist and say that I want to
Yeah.
kind of send this to these people, but then the point is that that process can also be done through the iPIE.
Yes. And I still feel, I'm not sure whether there is a space which is provided for authorized representative in most of the class of creditors. AR has a huge role to play. The AR would require most of the claims. AR would actually require most of the kind of agendas and the collect voting instructions. He will actually go through the e-voting, and finally he will have to demonstrate all the compliances under section 25 capital A. So all this should be through this. So in any CIRP, there should be a kind of a space for authorized representative also, so that he is also able to do all his work through this portal, which probably presently we couldn't see in the in the narration. No, there is a word written there that the AR, this word is written, the appointment of AR in creditors class, but not after that anything. IP appoints, that's the only thing that is mentioned, but there is a role of AR that can also be managed through this iPIE.
Coming to point module 5 talks about records management. So it says the module shall enable efficient organization and retrieval of documents through folder categorization, integration with external portals. So it kind of creates a record. So it says it will be a master for documents information related to the CD, structured DMS with folder-wise categorization, asset register, asset memorandum, liquidation estate. Asset valuation report will be there in this database, quotation information will be there, information memorandum will be there, avoidance transactions report will be there, handover of assets and records will be done simply by access control, because all this information is already part of iPIE. So in case an IP changes or a liquidator changes, the new IP and liquidator will instantly get all the information that is available on iPIE. So that is the whole idea. I think it's not stated specifically, but again, the idea was that if this DMS or documentation, if this is also used to share information between the RV and the IP. So RV will send an information requirement list, then the RP sends an email back, and this kind of keeps going on. So if all that is on the portal, then it will kind of bring more transparency and more accountability to both the RV and the IP. So that can be specifically mentioned, as valuation is of course a core process. Similarly, transaction auditor, that process can also be become part of this process. So any information that goes to the transaction or the transaction auditor can be part of or done through the system itself. I believe that can help.
So I will add into this records management system, because see, since this is to be shared with the stakeholders, creditors, committee members, but there are requirements at various stages. For example, there is a requirement of confidentiality undertaking before we share information memorandum, before we share valuation report, and in some cases like even the avoidance transaction report, that should not go to suspended management. The process of sharing information with the avoidance transaction auditor, that should be completely confidential. So that part has to be taken care. Like the records management, that doesn't mean that all the records are accessible to all. So that is the only observation. I hope the makers of iPIE would be kind of aware of this.
Next, we have module 6. This is resolution repayment plan management. So this module shall facilitate creation and publishing EOI and RFRP process, evaluation of responses, based on which the finalized resolution plan would be submitted to NCLT for its approval, and capturing its acceptance or rejection status of the resolution plan in iPIE. So it talks about EOI, it includes EOI publishing, EOI response submission and final list of potential resolution applicants, RFRP publishing and creation of VDR, RFRP response submission and evaluation, plan finalization and submission to NCLT, acceptance and rejection of resolution plan, plan finalization and submission to NCLT, contravention of resolution plan, pre-liquidation commencement, liquidator fee. I think we will have to add the implementation and monitoring, although that's the next part. So that's something that is dealt through a different module. Apart from this, I think the system will. I think the system, if it comes into place, will automatically control the number of financial proposals that come into a process. If that gets limited by the process or by the system, then that again will be.
So I believe the resolution plans are also being submitted through through this iPIE. So the process, how it has to be encrypted, that also would be defined by iPIE only. And then maybe Section 29A verification and the information that also will pass through this iPIE, so that there is a greater transparency and reliability on 29A reports. The resolution plan is a confidential document. How it has to be accessible to all the stakeholders, that has to be like properly managed. But the evaluation matrix is something which also can be covered, so that there is a complete transparency in evaluating the resolution plans. Other thing that I can actually say, that regarding the repayment plan for individual personal guarantors insolvency, there is only one word written, and I trust that the entire process for the insolvency of personal guarantor is presently covered in the iPIE. In case maybe now or later, but since it is mentioned in the document, so it means that it is also being covered. But how much it would be covered, that is not known as of now.
Module 7 is resolution, repayment, implementation, and monitoring. So it says this module should facilitate the implementation phase of the final resolution repayment plan after approval order is received from NCLT, including IMC constitution, updating SRA board details. And then it says distribution of proceeds, so distribution, intimation to CD, board, statutory authorities, workmen, employees, formation of IMC, resolution checklist, handover to SRA, submission of final report, and then release of discharge order by NCLT. So all these are part of this process. We understand that yes, distribution of proceeds, of course, is the number one.
I believe the only thing that we actually can see, that this is very useful, because whatever is being handed over to SRA, and the SRA is accepting that, there will be a complete transparency and a lot of litigation can be avoided. And secondly, the final report actually can be generated with all evidences from this iPIE. The final discharge order in the case of personal guarantors insolvency, that also again can be completely tracked. So this is the resolution or implementation, because this is required. This will presently, because of lack of statute on implementation part of the process, now this will have some standard processes, some standard models. So this will also standardize the handover, standardize the implementation. So which presently, although the recent regulations have tried, but this actually will further upgrade the process of implementation.
So then the 8th module is liquidation, bankruptcy, implementation, and monitoring.
Same,
So,
I believe this is also the same.
yeah, so it
That
says
is also quite a
again
similar.
very similar with respect to it talks about liquidation, initiation, and constitution of SEC. Although now it's COC only. Liquidation estate, management of the liquidation estate details and records, relinquishment, realization of security interest, distribution of proceeds, deposit of unclaimed proceeds, submission of final report, order for dissolution, closure, liquidation report submission, intimation to CD board, sale of assets, then so on. I think one thing that is coming to my mind here is that POFE applications are something that should also be separately dealt with in this entire ecosystem. We don't see anything here because presently we see that POFE applications are filed, but there is no response there. So maybe some tracking separately for what is the fate of POFE applications whether they were identified, not identified.
I think this is the very important requirement, that how many applications are pending before NCLT, that actually will come on a click. So if that happens, that actually will create some transparency and some kind of responsibility, some kind of answerability. Yes, that is important. Ankit, you're absolutely right.
So module number 9 is compliance management. So it says this module will facilitate and streamline regulatory compliance of corporate debtor with statutory authorities like IBBI, MCA, NCLT and IPAs through tracking, monitoring, recording and storing compliance related information. So it has compliance to IBBI, compliance to NCLT, compliances to statutory authorities, compliance to IPA, compliance to MCA. And in the morning when we were discussing this within RVO, they said we should add compliance to RVOs also. So yeah, all the compliances will be part of perhaps this process.
So presently, it is not saying that the CIRP or the liquidation compliance forms would be abolished, because see, the most of the information, most of the work, if it is being done through this iPIE, then why those informative forms are required?
They will be abolished. They will be part of this
See,
process.
presently it is saying enables filing of CIRP and the liquidation compliance forms through this. So that they are saying it will be filed through this.
No, it will be in part of this module, in my understanding.
But this is basically enables filing. So then it says the enables filing NCLT application. That is of course understandable. The compliance to statutory authorities is also understandable. Compliance to IPA enables, but there are some forms which are required to be submitted. But there are some information which the IBBI is collecting for processes that should be abolished in case everything is being done through iPIE.
Then point number 10 is litigation management. So this module shall act as a component within the legal case management system designed to help and manage streamlining the handling of legal disputes and litigation with NCLT and CLAT. And it says that manage the users here. Then it says litigations in NCLT and CLAT, so manage and tracking of those cases. I think this will include PUFE applications as well. Other litigations, so then all the High Court, Supreme Court, to an extent District Court, whatever is digitally possible will also be integrated here. Litigable issues, recording and tracking of litigable issues. So that's something that will be part of the litigation management module.
I'm not sure whether the advocates are the users or not, because let me see whether the advocates are users or not, because see, in this case I have not seen the legal professional. Legal professionals are users, so they can also become a users in this iPIE. And also the uh, limitation alerts, like the filing of appeals, all these are being made here in this litigation alert.
And the delegation will be happening as part of that user management system.
Orders also from NCLT, NCL80, or maybe that also would be kind of integrated in the iPIE. So this is also a kind of the most usable feature of, so that every information would be available. How much workload is presently pending before the judiciary. That actually would be a very, very important information.
Then we have module number 11, finance and cost management. Then we have module number 12, which is MIS reports and dashboards. And then we have module number 13, which is additional digital services, which includes VDR, that is virtual data room. Electronic voting will be part of the system. Document management system will be part of the system. Meeting management system will be part of the system. So it will enable IPs to organize and manage meetings with stakeholders, maintain records of proceedings and outcomes, and facilitate efficient coordination and approvals. So I believe even the meeting recordings will be part of the system. Communication tools. So of course all the email communications will be replaced by the communications on this system. Ticketing system. So in case there is any user inquiry, service request, reporting issues, grievances, those will be recorded. There will be a chatbot which offers efficient, timely, and user-friendly assistance to diverse stakeholders. I think this will be maybe AI integrated in some way. And then digital signature utility will allow secure and legally recognized method for signing and authenticating documents, ensuring data integrity and non-repudiation. So this is how this is done. So we have invitation. So they say that this platform development is being done by MCA along with KPMG Advisory Services and CMS Computers India Limited, and that's where they want the submission by 3rd of August 26. There is an email ID which is given, and there is a format which is given. So yes, use that format and you may send your suggestion or documents to this email ID.
So Ankit, what do you think, that would it be mandatory or it would be voluntary for every stakeholder?
Mandatory. I'm sure it will be mandatory.
So it will be mandatory for everyone, and then like the also it will be prescribed like who signs and kind of so everything would be fixed. Like it may take some time, but what we understand is that the big names have already been given a contract for developing this. The but then it is presently like, what is the timeline that we can understand?
We only have a submission date. I think normally the process is that these modules are designed, processes are defined, and then a software company will develop the software. So yes, we have seen similar process when we kind of were part of or working with GSTN for the purpose of how the GST network software was designed. So of course, with the designing, testing, and everything, it does take about I think almost 6 months to a year.
So what we understand that in future, maybe group insolvency is also integrated, maybe even cross-border insolvency is also integrated, maybe even the CIIRP also would be integrated. So it is presently not saying anything about that, but it would be integrated in case this will start. And it is definitely this Amendment Act had given these powers to IPI to launch any such portal. So I believe it is all very clear that this is going to come, and this will change the entire ecosystem of IBC. So any suggestions actually can be given. We would also be sending our suggestions. So I would ask all the viewers to send your suggestions. And this is all, Ankit. Anything that you would like to all?
No,
add?
yes, I think this is a good initiative. As you always appreciate earlier also, that this process which MCA and IBBI always adopt in launching a discussion paper, sharing and inviting feedback from the industry is really appreciative, because it actually allows the system to get all the information from the end users, and we see this seldomly happening in other ecosystems.
I would just give a closing message. iPIE is not another portal, not just another portal. If it is built as described, it will become a medium through which every CIRP, liquidation, pre-packaged processes, and individual insolvency in India would be conducted, and the record against which every insolvency professional's conduct is judged. The requirement is being written now by a consultant and a system integrated from whatever practitioners tell them before 3rd August. Everything in the platform that reflects how the work is actually done will be there because someone said so. This fortnight, it is important. This fortnight is important. Everything that we do in this fortnight, that will be reflecting on our work also in future, because this will be tracking, this will be judging, and this will be kind of finalizing the kind of work that we are doing. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.